Hello, and a warm welcome to everyone who turned in around the world. We feel super honored and excited about the high interest for our digital reporting convention. And we, as hosts of this workshop, we now turn into the digital information design. Before we dive you through our agenda, let me drive you your attention to our Q&A chat. That's a widget that you can see on the right-hand side of the window. And whenever you feel having a question already during the session or whenever, please type in your question, and my colleague Melanie, that collects the questions, will pick them up and get back. We will all get back to all the questions afterwards after the session. If okay for you, please include your name and your company so we can address them properly. So now let's switch to the agenda. What can you expect in the next 45 minutes? First, we give you a quick intro on how we receive content today. Then we dive a bit more into detail on what actually to consider when creating content for screen devices. And we'll focus on the corporate reports, of course, because that's our main topic. And then we try to wrap up all the learnings and summary to give you a proper insight and how you can execute on those ideas and how you can improve your upcoming next digital report. Karsten will take focus on all the kind of design elements, also on the questions. And then we move on at the final stage to answer all the questions and everything that you posted in the Q&A chat. So, properly introducing ourselves, servus and moi. I'm Thomas. I'm one of the founders of nexxar, and I'm currently a non-executive chairman. I feel very honored and blessed that I'm still involved with this super exciting company. But since our foundation back in 2003, we always have been at the forefront of digital corporate reporting. And at this very niche, it makes me very proud to see this company having grown from 0 to now more than 50 full-time employees in the past 17 years. Fun fact from my side, the topic of today, digital information design, has already been on the top of our mind right from the beginning. What does this tell us? Well, to be honest, I don't know, but let me share two observations on this. First, for such a tight reporting process, you need to know how you can do it, and you need proper software to handle. So that's probably one of the main obstacles that you need to overcome in your planning. And the second thing is changes in large corporates usually take quite some time. So they don't happen quickly, and that's why I think digital information design will still stick with us and would probably have this topic again in the upcoming years. Yeah, so Karsten, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Karsten. I'm a senior designer for concept and design here at nexxar. I'm one of the employees, and my job is to analyze reports, come up with new design ideas, new design improvements, and concepts for storytelling. And when we've got a decision made, I also lay everything out in detail. So that's what I do as a designer here. And I'm also super excited for this presentation.
So we thought it's a good mix that we have. I'm more on the strategic and conceptual side. When I started working with reports, I even was writing management discussion sections and other parts of the report, and we thought it's a good combination to have the design aspect and the conceptual UX UI aspect together with the strategic parts.
Right.
Okay, and now let's get right into the topic. We start to take a step back actually and look at the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? What can we see actually in society? How does technology change the way how we live? Everybody is currently discussing about this social media, the dilemma on Netflix. And I think it's right to the point. Smartphones are already mainstream. And interestingly, the original use case, actually the phone call, is now only a side case anymore. So it's the next things that are already lining up are wearables. So everybody has like any smart watch that gives him additional information. You have fitness trackers. You even Google Glasses are maybe coming up as the next device. So things seem to have accelerated ever since. It's always technology. Software is eating the world. Technology is pushing through, and from my perspective, things like the coronavirus even actually accelerate this development. So we don't see a pushback. It's always pushing us forward into the direction of using more technologies. Virtual meetings now take place in all environments that I actually have not thought will happen soon, but nowadays things that have actually changed a lot. So what does this tech shift mean for the communication and on how we actually receive content today? Let me ask a simple question. How many letters did you send this year? Or in the last 5 years, or even 10 years? Fun fact, I actually posted one last week, but that was the only one in the last year. So I guess not many of you come up with a high number on this. So many will probably say in the last 5 years, I have not written a single one.
I'm one of them.
True. So this reason, the reason for this is pretty obvious, I think. So communication patterns have shifted. We all have smartphones on hand. With these devices, we can communicate with friends, family within seconds and include voice messages, even pictures or videos. This form of communication is not only cheaper and faster, it is also easier and offers more options. Every time has its communication channels, and today's channel is digital. But new channels not necessarily extinct old ones. So for example, the TV did not kill the radio, and nor the online channel killed the TV. These channels, they coexist side by side, and there are different use cases. So we use those channels for different purposes, and that's, I think, the way how also the print and online actually coexist. Quick example, you're on the commute and you want to read the news. What will you do? That's the obvious thing that used to be. So paper formats, you grab a newspaper, but these are huge in size and not easy to use on a subway. And most important, you would need to get them before you enter actually the subway, and you only have the choice for this one single newspaper, or you have to select in advance what newspaper you want to read. So it's less flexible. You have to take a lot of decisions. So before, take out our all-in-go one gadget, our smartphone, and get close and get a dose of dopamine. And there you can also switch through Facebook, Instagram, and whatever. So you have the full flexibility, not just restricted to one thing. That's an example. Of course, you could read on the smartphone. You could also read the PDF from the Guardian. But of course, that's hard to read. Zooming, panning. So that's actually a clear understanding that a PDF on a mobile is not an option. And it's, from my perspective, it's not a digital communication matter. PDFs are not meant for actually being consumed on digital devices. That's the proper way how you will do it. So you will prefer a layout that actually fits on your screen device. And the advantages are here very clear. Not only is the content much easier to consume, it's fitting on the screen, but also you have additional stuff like video. You can also have multimedia, animations, interactive graphs, cross-linking, all the stuff that we are currently used to. So that is a very obvious example of what actually digital communication means nowadays. And another thing that I want to point out here is also that actually content that does not live online does not exist anymore. So my kids, for example, they will ask Google everything. So anything that you have in mind, you will just go and ask Google. And if Google does not reference content, it simply does not exist anymore. first learning of today that I would like to point out is actually digital channels now to dominate the communication mix. I think that's something that we have to have in mind, and it will actually even accelerate in the future. Welcome to 2020.
Okay.
Moving on to Karsten, who will take you through the specifics of digital content.
Right. Digital channels dominate today's communication mix. What does it mean? What do we have to keep in mind when we create content today for the web, and especially report content? What do we have to keep in mind? Of course, the basis of everything needs to be the needs of the digital era. Let me give you one example, which is the example of time. Let's say you're a stockholder of AkzoNobel and you want to know the 2019 EBITDA of AkzoNobel. There are a few ways how you could find this information. The first one could be you go to your phone and order the report. Then you wait for 1 or 2 weeks at least, but finally you receive it. You can open up your box, run through the book, and bam, there it is. You finally found it. So
nice emoticon.
This process took you for about 1 or 2 weeks at least. I can tell you I have ordered several printed reports out of curiosity because I'm a designer, and I've waited for them for weeks and weeks until I already forgot about that I actually ordered them when they arrived. So you see, finding your information in a printed report comes with a pretty slow process. We at nexxar, we do digital annual reports, but also we've got to admit that there also printed report have their advantages. One of them, which is a pretty popular one, is that you can touch them. And again, I'm a designer. I can tell you I like that too, because I like paper, and I really like how it looks, how it smells, how it feels when you touch it. Everything the look can have when all the textures it can have. And it's really nice having this whole thing in your hand when you can flip through it. And you know, I guess that probably a lot of you know that there's a noise here. That creating an annual report is a really big amount of work. And in the end, it's super nice when you have your work in your hand and when you can flip through it. And some people still think that this printed report still feels more valuable, which I totally understand. But the thing is, like I said, it's a huge amount of work. And like Thomas already said, when you can't find it on Google, it just doesn't exist. So you have a lot of work and you only have it on paper. So no matter how beautiful that may be, the thing is, today's requirements are more other than haptics, and that's what we are here for. Because the thing is how it actually works today. Of course, is like this: you go on Google, you type in what you're looking for, hit enter, and there you have got your answer. This process took you for about 5 seconds. And when you want to know even more, you can scroll down just a little bit here to the second search hit, which is the full annual report, and you could click on it and deep dive into all the information you want to have. So we have a process of a few weeks versus a process of a few seconds. To make this process possible, there are some things we need to keep in mind. And what we've got to keep in mind is the understanding that the online world is different than the paper world. The example I just showed you shows this one fact. When we want to have information, like you told me about your children, when you want to have them information, we all now are used to get them now, right away, anytime, anywhere. because of that, we all have a pretty short attention span, and this attention span gets shorter every day, and not really every day, but let's say every year.
Every year, yeah.
Yeah, and on the other hand, there's a fierce competition for this attention. We all know that that attention is the rarest and one of the most valuable goods out there today. This leads to the fact that we do not read information anymore on the web. We scan it, but I will come to that in a minute. Then there's the thing that we as developers, as designers and programmers, we have to think about and care about a gigantic range of devices out there, all the different sizes of smartphones and tablets and computers and so on, which is pretty difficult. The fact that the internet is made for multi-way communication is also different, and because of that, there are things like crowd intelligence and share economy and so on. So that is the digital world today, and you see that is the way it works today. And on paper, everything is pretty much the opposite. But reports often are still thought like they only exist on paper, and they are created like they only exist on paper. So
because that's where they come from.
That's where they come from, and
we need to change.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. And the thing is, when you want your content and your report perform on the web, you have to keep all of that in mind. So the next learning for today is to reach your audience, your content has to be thought of digitally, not for print, but digitally. Okay, so how can we do that? It's one super important topic when it comes to that is structure and navigation. The web is all about structure and navigation. And on the next slide, I want to show you a picture of how people often think a website is read. People often think that their users come on their website and they're looking for something specific. So how do you do it? You go to a website, you read everything, you reflect everything you just read, and after that you carefully choose what you click on to get your information. It sounds kind of logical, right? But no, of course not, because like I already said, we don't have attention span anymore. We do not read. We do not read everything. The truth is much more chaotic. When we want to know something, we go on a website and we start fastly looking around for anything that kind of looks interesting, that vaguely resembles what we're looking for, and that looks clickable. And when we found something, it's nice, we click on it, and when this was the right link, we're happy, and when it was wrong, we go back and repeat everything. So you see, that's what I already told you. On the web, we do not read anymore. We scan content. What does it mean for your contents? The thing is, scannable contents need to be designed differently, because scannability does not work the way your contents work on paper. So how do we do that? How can we make your content scannable? The answer here is hierarchy. On the web, hierarchy is king. In our case, this picture needs to be turned around and look like this, because how hierarchy on the web works and how we do it is actually like this. We design it the way that it's for the user super obvious and clear what is the most important topic on the site, what's next important, the less and the least important topic. That's how you make content scannable. And to show you how that works in detail, I again switch to Thomas.
Thanks, Karsten. It's I think also important to mention that, of course, when you think of content to make it digitally scannable and receivable, some of the tools that you can apply actually work, and you can add them onto the content, so the content can stay the same. And other things, if you have to decide which channel you prefer. So when you say you want to switch to a full digital report, then you have to skip part of the old way how you communicated. So that's I think that's also important to point out. But maybe we can elaborate on that later in the Q&A session. Yeah. Shaping content for the digital report. So having that, what you heard, Karsten, take that on board. And now think of what does that mean actually for creating the content that actually typically rely and you typically work in a digital report. First of all, headlines and subheadlines. Design a clear hierarchy. Make clear what is the headline of the page. The headline of the page always comes on top. It's very clear that pages, of course, do not have the same order and the same structure as in print. Sometimes you split up content that usually sits just on half a page into a single one. If it's from the hierarchy level important, sometimes you have pages in a print report that span over 3-4 pages, and they will all come in one single web page. So that's something where you have to be clear. Headline is giving you a clear overview of the page structure and what is important on the top. Another thing is paragraphs. Keep them short and clear. As we said already, attention span is not a lot. So you have to have, even on mobile, understand this is a paragraph and not a full-blown blurry text. Another good tip and difference from print side is bold-facing. Give the reader a chance to actually quickly understand what is important in each paragraph. Use bold, also links, cross links or other highlight colors are helpful to quickly grasp what is actually here in this paragraph. And then of course lists. Lists is something that actually are super nice to have online. Of course they summarize, they give structure. They also help you to quickly understand what's in that page on that paragraph. Okay, people cannot hear me anymore, so thanks for this thing. Is that better now? Yeah, works again. Okay, try not to move. Another thing are highlights. So especially when it is visually attractive, you can make them stand out. Use colors, use bigger font size. We have here some examples that I think quickly make it understandable what you need to do here. So anything that is actually when you scanning through content where your eye will just quickly understand. And sometimes people just read the highlights on a page. So have in mind that the highlights actually also tell a story already. Yeah, that was the first part. Next part I would like to highlight specifically for reporting is we have huge amount of contents. A lot of our digital reports that we produce actually contain more content than the full corporate websites. So we have hundreds of printed pages that we actually convert into a digital source and digital pages. And the clear structure and navigation is key. So try to stick to structuring elements that you have already in reporting. So I think it's clear you have a governance section and the financial statement section, the MD&A, and these kind of sections, and make them accessible with a classic tree navigation, as this example from Solvay shows. And then another thing, 2 parts that I would like to highlight here is to make the content findable online. You can do that. This example here is with hashtag from Covestro, or with keywords from AktionNobel, which is actually pretty much the same. Hashtag is more taking reference to social media, but it's pretty much the same idea. Keywords give you guidance, so the producer of the report can give you a hint what actually are keywords that make sense to look at. And then you can click on these keywords or hashtags and you quickly be brought to the specific place in the report. Also a very nice way of actually getting your content digitally is using a classic search window. So Google I think is a good aspiration. They really do a great job. If you implement on your homepage like Deutsche Telekom did here, a search window, everybody will quickly understand what it is for. Use these mechanisms and make your content available and keep, but if you do that, you of course have to meet the expectations that people have when they use Google. So the search need to be, of course, specifically relevant so that people can quickly find what they want in the report. Learning from here, from this part, is structure and orientation are both key to tap into content digitally. So I think that's I think a fundamental part of any report, any digital report. The next part that now comes more into what I said is probably in contradiction with the print, because you have printed needs. But online, you should try to reduce as much complexity as possible. The reduced attention span is a limiting factor, and if you write too much, often the content is not read. We all know in the web acronyms like KISS, keep it short and simple, or TLDR, too long, did not read. And these acronyms, I think, give you a clear understanding how web works differently. Yeah, here is an example of highlights, how you can do that. So on top, this is a report from Geberit. On top of the report, you have a timeline where you see every month of the year what has been the highlight of the year. And that is something where you can explore and you can quickly also understand what has happened on the business side. And that's a good way of highlighting actually your highlights for each of the months. Another example that we would like to show is how you can reduce complexity. This is an example actually from the opposite. So you have this complexity already in the printed report. This is from Novartis, showing the different vaccines they offer and where they actually apply and where what they do within the body. And imagine now this to put on a screen will not work. So it's not possible. I think even in print is already on the edge. Actually, it's overwhelming. I don't know where to look first. And that's why we took this example and show you how actually digital can work to make that visually even better and more interesting and revealing. So you click, you see the body and where the vaccines actually apply. And when you click on, those elements open and get more information on click where actually is applicable. So that's, I think, a good way how you can connect digital channel with this reducing of complexity on revealing information on click. This is similar now in the context of a workflow. It's from the Shell Sustainability Report. You have the workflow that you want to present, and also is already telling you a context. And also here you have options to get more information on click. So you feed your audience basically step by step, layer by layer, and therefore reducing complexity. That's, I think, a big advantage of the web. Also, something that you can do and that makes sense is also to be clear and don't lose your focus when you actually provide information in a like storytelling manner. So this is a simple pie chart where you actually, from the Novozymes report, and you actually click through and you see the different elements that are highlighted with additional information and then offer to dig into more details where the specific explanation lies within the report. So it's a clear way how you just click through. Here is another example with complexity and content, the Solvay growth strategy. This is how the PDF is laid out on a double-page spread. Very hard to actually bring that also on screen. It's a struggle to make that possible. How can you do that? Use tabs, for example. They minimize the overload and you can still convey the message. So you still see the growth as the acronyms of the strategy, and by clicking on the different tabs, you unveil the more information. Learning, web, KISS, because too long did not read. Moving on, another advantage of web that you definitely should take care of and also use is connecting the dots. The web is all built in HTML, and HTML from the beginning is hypertext. It's a hypertext markup language, and hypertext means clicking. You can click anywhere, and you can offer additional information on every spot of the report. Make use of it, because you bring the user in charge and make the user deciding on the journey themselves. This is an example from the micro report where you see a lot of links offered, and the user can continue. They can choose where they want to go next. Also, I think a very good example is the GRI index. It's a natural fit in the printed report, and the PDF, same. Usually you state with the indicator on which page they are covered and what part actually of you need them to go there by the page number and flick through and understand, okay, this is the message. Online, you just paste a link there. So you see the indicator and you see where it's covered and the direct link on the chapter, click on it, you're there. So that's how actually web works. If you want, you can combine this. Here's an example with Metro Group. You can combine this with teasers. So you click here in this wheel, you click the different sections, and you get a quick intro to what it's about. So that it's not just a link, but a bit more information. And then you can continue and get more information on click. So the learning of this connecting the dot is the web is a pull and not a push channel. You need to offer choices and you need to connect the dots. So you as a publisher, you're in charge of actually offering, and that's probably one of the really hard works that you need to do. You know your report best, and you need to open up the channels for the user to actually make them clickable. Yes, and that's something that probably everyone is also waiting for, and that's one of the cornerstones of any reporting, to tell stories. We are all still from the bonfires, and that's why we want to read and to hear stories. Karsten, I think you're the best to tell those stories.
Yeah, yes, because of course, storytelling is a thing that's pretty natural to the design world. We as designers are telling stories visually, but also with text and videos and so on. And that's why I have chosen 3 examples I want to show you, which kind of, let's say, show the intensity of storytelling that you can have in your report. No, that's the wrong direction. This way to go. Okay, the first one is the 2019 annual report from BMW. Which shows pretty heavy video work. I will start this now. I hope you can see it all. As you can see, there are nice photographs, big text, big quotes, and here a video now starting of nice pictures of birds and winds and nature. And then there's this gentleman now playing an instrument. You see, it's a pretty elaborate work. They have done a huge amount of work here, and the story of the whole magazine is actually they call it the freedom of choice, which means when you've got a car, you have the freedom of choice to go where you want to and to do what you like to. And so they interviewed some people. In this case, this Dutch musician, of what he thinks freedom of choice is and why BMW is helping him doing that. So there are pros and cons about this story. You could argue that it's pretty staged because when you go on the report and you read it, you will see it does not feel authentic. They have done a very nice work here from the design perspective. But the thing is, they have done such a good work that it feels like a TV ad. It looks nice, but I don't believe them. That's the contrary side of it. But the good side is why I show you this anyway is it shows very clear what you can do with storytelling on the web. You can have when you have a budget, you can go out in the world, interview people, make not only photos but videos, and play music and have animations and big quotes and so on and so on. So from design perspective, they have done a pretty good job here. From the perspective of authenticity, it's not that good, I would say, but that's my personal opinion. Of course, that's up to everyone else to judge. Telling about authenticity, I will come to the next case. I hope so. No? This direction and this direction. Okay. This is a video from Galapagos. They make vaccines. That's a difficult word. And
we hear that very often nowadays. We all hope for it.
Okay,
go Galapagos,
I didn't
go.
train it enough. Okay, as you can see, there's these people. This is a whole C-level management of Galapagos playing football together. And you can see the whole video is a big metaphor for the way they work and for the business world itself. You see like video scenes where they tell you we've prepared a lot. We're now marching on the field. We trained a lot. Sometimes we fall down, but then we help up each other and so on and so on. Of course, there are two. You could argue it's a bit staged, but on the other hand, it's not that overproduced like the BMW case. So I find it pretty nice. It's in my opinion, a good middleweight balanced authenticity. And what the pro side of this video is it's much nicer and authentic than the BMW. That's what I like about it. And what you can see for yourself here is that even with just one camera and having an idea for a video, you can tell a nice story in your report. Because the idea here is pretty easy. You have your management, you go play football and you film it. That's it. Mm-hmm. And the third case I want to show you is a pretty classic one. You could here say it's a pretty classic website. You have text. When you can scroll down, there are some animations and nice photos. And here Metro is telling the story of where their potatoes come from that they sell. This is also, of course, storytelling, because you write a story and in this case, they just animated it a little bit. This is more a classic way of not storytelling, but scrollytelling. Mm-hmm. But I think they've done a pretty well job here, because they kept everything in mind that we just talked about. They have scannable content, scannable headlines, short paragraphs, nice pictures, little animations, and that's already enough to tell a nice story. So
good example, yeah.
These are the three examples I wanted to show you. And the learning from that is storytelling remains key, even though technology has changed. Because, of course, you already know in the printed reports and everywhere else, we used to tell stories anyway. And also, of course, in the web, we continue doing it, and it's super important. And with the topic of storytelling, of course, is the icing on the cake. And now we'll come to the basis of everything, which is, of course, the data.
Yeah, so I think it's this point in time when we actually have already this high-level storytelling, and now going back to the data part, because actually, at the end of the day, we are talking about annual reports, and annual reports consists of more than half of the pages actually are tables. So it's a very heavy, data-heavy publication. And we don't want to miss out on that, because we think it's hugely important. So actually, just bringing to mind, screens are often far too small to properly display table data. You see here an example from Deutsche Bank. This table does not fit on a screen. It's just impossible. So how can you make those huge content at least these huge tables, because they are there, they are legally important, you need to have them in a report. How can you actually make that somehow fit on a screen? One option that you have, and that's what we want to highlight here, is to freeze the headers. So they are sticky. So the labels on the top actually are there, and when you scroll down, the content just runs beneath these labels. So that's one example. A second example showing is your offer overview versus detailed information. So this is an example from the Migros report. You just click on overview. This is the current status. This is the detailed status. Yeah, this is, I think, a very good way how you can combine both overview and detail. Try to speed up a bit so that we have enough time afterwards for the Q&A. Oh, yeah. This is an example how to visualize data. Basically, you can highlight on rows, and they are then translated into charts, which is also, I think, a very appealing use of technology, how you can do that. That's from the Shell annual report. Yeah, and then of course, classic making line charts, also bar charts. You can do that with any kind of chart. Make them mouse over information. Just you mouse over a part and you get highlights on the values, for example. So that's also added value that you can easily create and make them data more accessible. And not to forget, and that's probably one of the easiest things that you should do, offer downloads on the spot. So an Excel download is something that is number crunchers are looking for. Offer them on the spot, offer them more also on the download section, offer them multiple times, makes actually the life of these people easier, and everything that makes life easier is good in reporting. So learning from this section, stupid, reports are still all about data, of course. Summing up, what are the main and key learnings that we want to give you with today? First, we put it into 3 steps. I think the first is the basics. That's something that you need to, that's like the fundament. Create a layout and a navigation that actually is thought for screen devices and not for print or PDFs. So this is something that you can do well ahead of a report. This is something you can do independently of the different years of the reporting. This is something that needs to be done once and can be reused. It's the fundament. It's the fundament of everything. And actually it's already, I would say, you're probably doing that well. You're already ahead of probably 90% of the online reports that I can see out there. Then comes the core, and that's probably more difficult to do because it really digs into content, and that's something that is taking a lot of time, of course, and is also in the process of producing a report. When you're in the stress mode, it's more complicated. The structure, the layering of information. Have in mind to keep it short and simple. Highlights, put up highlights in the beginning, and also highlight stuff that is important in the report. Use cross links because it's HTML. It's about hypertext. That's the core. If you do that, you're probably in the 99% league already if you do that properly. And then comes the icing. Tell your story captively and interactively. And my message here with the icing actually is, the icing is, as always, is a super nice thing to distinguish, but don't do the shortcut. I've seen so many reports that just offer an icing, and offering an icing without the fundament and without the core is just stupid, because you will get attention, but you will not get across the real content, and that's a waste in my point of view. Thank you. Open for questions.
So I'm going to read out the questions that reached us.
Thanks, Melanie.
So first one is from Jennifer. She wrote, thanks for sharing examples of interactive infographics in general. What information is suitable to be prepared as an interactive infographic? Can you provide a few examples?
I think that's, Karsten, that's your part.
Of course, there's no general answer to that. You have to look at every case in particular. But maybe some general thing you could say is, when you have got a really complex data, it's maybe a good idea to think about making it interactively. Like we said, you have to reduce complexity, and complex informations often come with on print. They come with let's say a huge complex graphic. There's kind of overwhelming, and you don't know where to start looking and where to end looking, and so on and so on. And here interactivity often really helps. There are graphics like the growth strategy. We already saw some strategic graphics that we already designed interactively. There are several examples we at nexxar already did. But like I said, in general, let's say the more complex your graphic is, the more suitable probably an interactive solution would be.
I would add to that.
What would you say?
Yeah, I would say use technology where you can add value and not just for the sake of it. So animation of, I don't know, stupid things that just, I don't know, move around and do nothing in reality and do not convey any meaning and any message. They are just, they feel gimmicky. And I don't want to have a gimmicky report.
Yeah, of course, that's clear. When you have a complex data, and you have to make it valuable, but of course not just
for the sake of it.
Just for the sake of it, everything moves around and flies and blows up or whatever.
Yeah, those days are gone. So I remember in the past we had this, but I think that's gone. Okay, let's move on.
The next one is from Lisa from Edi und Sepp. She also wrote, "Thanks for the great input. Do you have any experience with clients who won't give up printed reports completely and combine them with an online report? Are there any experiences on such hybrid solutions you can share?"
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, Lisa. I think this is something that we come up every day. We have this problem every day. And there is actually this fine line that you need to decide as a publisher. So you're the publisher of the report. And the decision that you need to take is you can take, we call that online on top approach, where you actually still focus on the print side. So the content is basically still designed and created for the print. And we give some input where actually it doesn't compromise the print, where you can add value on the content creation. But then we take the content and make the best out of that online. So that's, I would say, the starting point. And that's what we have done in the last 17 years already, quite well as nexxar. And then comes in the other side, and that's online first. We'll also have a session, I think, today for online first. And that's something where you actually focus purely on the web. So everything there comes with the context of best fitting on screen. And then you change the content, and then you change how you write and do everything also on the process. And in between, there are a lot of options. If you focus on online first, for example, you can still produce a PDF or a printable document, but there will of course be downsides for the experience of the print. So you see, everything in between is possible. You can do a mix, but you need to guide basically, and need to decide in the beginning which way you should follow. Everything's actually, it's possible, but it's your mix that you need to define in the beginning. I think we have a case study of Auditors right after this session. I think there we'll go more into detail on exactly this balance between print and online.
Thank you. So we touched this topic and showed some examples, but the question is, how about using video in the online report? So maybe you can summarize in a short sentence.
Is this question more specific? Of course, we have a lot of cases where we use videos. Some pretty popular idea is making a video of the CEO, not only making a letter of the CEO where the CEO basically message where the CEO writes a letter to their stakeholders, but really making a personal video where the CEO more talks with their stakeholder, which is much more personal, much more emotional, and which is really nice add-on on a report. And then, of course, we have a lot of videos in background animations. We have videos in in the magazine stories and so on. So in a report, there are several opportunities where you can use videos.
And from the strategic and conceptual perspective, keep them short. Nobody wants to watch videos that are long, lengthy.
Nobody wants to watch Hollywood movies on reports.
So I would say a hard and fast rule will be less than 2 minutes. Yeah. That's a limiting factor. Even less is good if you just have short videos.
You have to make it shareable.
Yeah.
Because of course it would be good if the video is shareable on, let's say, LinkedIn, Instagram, and so on. But also there nobody watches long movies.
Yeah.
So
and also important, I think, use, for example, background of video for also summarizing. So video in itself is also changing nowadays. So not just talking heads, but also give like what the person is talking as a quick overview in the background, so that you visualize together with the video actually what's the message.
Yeah,
that's also, I think, important.
Thank you. So another question is the auditor a factor to consider? Do they dictate what companies can do?
Auditors always like to dictate. Well, the thing is, in the back section, so financial statements, of course, they're the auditor's rule, and they give pretty much the guideline what tables have to be in there, and when, for example, the true and authentic picture of the state of the company is achieved. But we have a lot of good relation with a good relation with a lot of those auditors, and have been discussing in the past. They also are interested into the options that you have on screen, because at the end of the day, the device is nowadays also limiting the options that you have to convey and to present your statements, and that's also important. So these tools that we had been showing today, for example, for the table section, that's something that the auditors love. So I remember discussions with auditors that they love to download, for example, the spreadsheets from the report, because we sometimes give them a missing link in their auditing cycle. Of course, the table section usually is not serviced after pushing to the print reporting. With the tables from the online, they can feed into their auditing tools and have actually the missing link. So I think digital is here playing nowadays a vital role also for the auditors. Is that covering? It's hard to say.
I hope so.
Okay, I hope so too.
But thank you. Moritz is asking, do you think other digital formats like reporting apps will become more important in the future?
No, as far as I know, reporting apps are not really important anymore.
No, I don't think so. I think apps, well, the word app is something that is also blurry nowadays, because you can have a web app. So any report that is a single website, basically, that it can be converted into an app as well.
Yeah.
So the word app, I think, is kind of misleading nowadays, because you get an icon on an app store. That's the difference, basically, from a web app.
And the thing is, why should anyone want to download an app to only access one report when you can go in your browser and just type the address in your browser? Why would I want to download an app first?
Yeah.
That's, from the user perspective, there is no advantage.
I mean, we saw some interest when the iPad was launched in this kind of channel, because then you have a prominent, let's say, button in the App Store where you can gather interest from a company perspective. But actually, this has been, I would say, there was some interest there, but nowadays it's not anymore as important. People just prefer the digital as online, is the internet as web channel.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we only have time for one last question, but
make a good choice.
So I'm going on chronologically, so I don't make the choice now, but don't worry, for all of them who have submitted a question that can't be answered now, we will take them into account at our learnings and recap session tomorrow at 14 o'clock. So we hope to answer your question then.
At 2 p.m. Okay.
So Last one, Claudia from Unipol asks, would you suggest the usage of financial highlights video or keep using more emotional video content that defines the key message of the company for every year reporting?
I would say we could, of course, do both. It's good to have emotional videos because, like the word said, they're emotional, they're very shareable, and people like watching those small videos. But of course, financial highlights also have the big advantages when you make a nice animation out of them or a video, and you can also share them on social media. So and like, for example, on LinkedIn, where you have more people that are kind of interested in your company from a business perspective. They also, of course, they like animations and videos that show key data.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a report. So yeah, as we said already, reports are about data. So I would say it fully makes sense to also have a video about the financial highlights, of course. And it can be emotional as well, if the highlights are not good or good.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your questions.
Yeah, I think it's not much time now. We have 4 minutes until the next workshop starts with Auditors. We hope you enjoyed the workshop and look forward to have you in the Auditors session. Take a quick grab a coffee and take a break, and be right back with you.